Hi students, bonded labor, a social issue. Bonded labor, bondage or bond labor are the appropriate terms to use when economic penalties are connected to forced labor. Bonded labor is a sort of patronage when the minimum wage paid to the worker is barely enough to meet the daily expenses of the employee, and the relation between the employer and his employee is often characterized by unsettled and exploitative payment agreements which are beneficial to the employer. All kinds of bonded labor are not considered forced, but most forced labor practices possess a bonded nature, regardless of whether the work involves adults or children. Bonded labor has been widespread in India under the menace of a penalty, that is, because of loan taken, and when people are unable to pay back the loan, they become bonded laborers. This penalty may consist of loss of rights and privileges. Bonded laborers are subjected to physical violence, control, hazards, and deal with economic consequences. With the commencement of the Act, the consequences that occurred are as follows. That is, bonded laborers are positioned freed and discharged from any responsibility to render to bonded labor. All practices, traditions, contracts, agreements or instruments by virtue of which a person or any member of the family is dependent on such person is required to render bonded labor shall be invalid. Every responsibility of bonded laborer to repay any bonded debt shall be deemed to have been extinguished. No suit or any other proceeding shall lie in any civil court or any other authority for recovery of any bonded debt. Despite the statutory prohibitions, bonded labor is widely practiced. The most terribly affected are the children and women, particularly those from the Dalit community. The legal framework against bonded labor provided in the Bonded Labor System Abolition Act 1976 is supported by other legislations like the Contract Labor Regulations and Abolition Act 1970, the Interstate Migrant Workmen Regulation of Employment and Conditions of Services Act 1979, and the Minimum Wages Act 1948, bonded labor. The main objective of this lesson is to acquaint the learners about the problem of bonded labor, their condition, constitutional provisions, and legal safeguards for combating bonded labor. Now, we will know what is bonded labor. Bonded labor or debt bondage occurs when a person's labor is demanded in return for a loan. The person is then tricked into working for little or no pay. The value of their work is usually greater than the original loan. In many cases, the loan is passed down from parent to child. Female bonded laborers will often be subject to sexual abuse by their employer. Around 20 million people are estimated to be in bonded labor worldwide. Bonded labor is most likely to exist in situations of poverty where an unexpected expense such as medical cost or a marriage dowry forces an individual to borrow. Bonded laborers are usually unable to defend their rights or are bound by a misplaced sense of duty to repay the debt owed by their family. One of the principal characteristics of the bonded labor system is the existence of creditor-debtor relationship and the laws of freedom. There is laws of freedom may be of different forms, such as first one, laws of freedom from employment or alternative employment opportunities in order to earn a decent livelihood. Second, laws of freedom to earn minimum wage regarding a planned employment as notified by the government. Third, laws of freedom to migrate from one part of the country to another. Fourth, laws of freedom to sell any product in the market or even the labor of any of his family member dependent upon him. Now, we will briefly discuss about the origin and causes of bonded labor. The origin of bonded labor can be traced from the caste hierarchy and feudal structure. In earlier times, the people were divided into 4 categories, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Since the lower caste person did not have enough land to cultivate, they needed money for fulfillment of social obligations, besides satisfaction of their psychological needs, and for this purpose they become indebted to the higher caste person. As the debtor has nothing to offer as security, the creditor demanded that he pledges his person and work for the creditor in lieu of the redemption of debt and interest. Guarantee of a permanent source of cheap labor on a long-term basis was the main interest of the money lender. The zamindari system introduced by the erstwhile colonial rulers with all these ills of high rate of interest, absentee landlordism and oppressive treatment to millions of tenants was abolished after remaining on the ground for 200 years. However, the scars still visible in the shape of at least thousands of landless agricultural laborers. The skewed distribution of land and other assets is accentuated by excessive seasonality of employment in agriculture and the absence of stable and durable avenues of non-agricultural employment, leading to seasonal migration. It is further accentuated by denial of remunerative wages for the tillers of the soil who have to take resource to loan, debt, advance in distressed situation, leading to indebtedness and bondage. The system of debt bondage evolved at different points of history in different parts of the country. Different laws were also enacted at the provisional level more to regulate them to abolish the system, culminating in the bonded labor. System Abolition Act passed by both House of Parliament on 9th February 1976. In Andhra Pradesh, the system was a direct outcome of several categories of landlessness involving various economically exploited sections of society. The system, known by different names such as Vetti, debt slavery, Bhagola, Chakri, Jitam, etc., originated from the uneven social structure characterized by feudal and semi-feudal conditions found in the Telangana region. The erstwhile government of Nizam up to 1949 had taken steps to eradicate the bonded labor system known as Bhagola in the old Hyderabad state and has passed the Hyderabad-Bhagola Agreement Act in 1943. The act, however, suffered in terms of implementation due to pervasive ignorance, illiteracy and social backwardness of Bhagolas. In Bihar, the system is known as Kanua, Sevakiyas, Harvahian, Bahoti, as the origin of debt bondage can be traced back to the caste hierarchy and feudal structure of the village community. The system was characterized by the debtor working for the creditor for long hours, low wages, oppressive treatment and the obligations of the father being passed on to the son. Even today, the landless agricultural laborers belonging to lower caste in Bihar continue to be exploited by the higher caste due to loans advanced to them at usurious rates of interest. In Karnataka, the system is known as Jita, which is a corrupt form of Jivita, meaning lifetime. In other words, the person rendering service under this system are bonded for life. The bonded labor system is in the form of attached labor and is widely prevalent among the members of the 𝗧𝗦 community on a hereditary and obligatory basis. In Madhya Pradesh, the system is known as Kamiya or 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 in Chhattisgarh, Kabarani in Balaghat and Haravai in Vindhya region. The hallmarks of the Kamiya system or Harwa system found in parts of Madhya Pradesh are agreement between the tenure holder and the plowman. The ploughman obtains an interest-free advance. The ploughman renders services on nominal wages until the money obtained in advance is fully repaid. The ploughman loses the freedom to work for others. In Orissa, the system of bonded labor is known as 𝗧𝗧. In this system, the landless tribal groups seek credit without any collateral to meet expenses on marriage, funeral procuring cattle and other implements, or for paying off bad debts. There is an oral agreement between the creditor and the debtor for an unspecified period which covers the debt without any mention of the corresponding agreement. The 𝗧𝗏 bonded slavery and 𝗵𝗔 and 𝗵𝗏𝗸 forced labor were abolished in 1921 and 1923 respectively, followed by the enactment of the Orissa Debt Bondage Abolition Regulation 1948, which declared all 𝗧𝗧 agreements void with some riders. Debt bondage in Rajasthan is known as the 𝗧𝗧 system, one of the most hideous manifestation of usury with its attendant elements of oppression and exploitation. The origin of the system can be traced back to the Bhil tribes of Rajasthan seeking loan from crafty moneylenders for social ceremonies like marriage, remarriage and festivities associated with birth and death. There are two types of agreements entered into between the 𝗧𝗧 and the creditor, both being totally disadvantageous to the former. Even after mortgaging the services of all family members, the principal amount could never be repaid. The 𝗧𝗧 had to take recourse to distress sales of land, animals, ornaments and agricultural produce, and the bondage perpetuated itself in some cases ranging between 1 and 20 years and in a few cases above 20 years. The system was abolished in 1961 by the Rajasthan 𝗧𝗧 System Abolition Act, which was further amended in 1975. In Uttar Pradesh, the system was known by different names such as 𝗵𝗏𝗸, 𝗵𝗏, 𝗪𝒍𝒻, 𝗵𝒃, etc., and was prevalent in agriculture, stone quarries, brick kilns, matchbox and firework factories, beedi, brassware, glass, bangle and carpet manufacturing industries. This system is found in the Pata region of Banda and Allahabad districts, hill districts and the carpet belt of Badoy, Varanasi, Mirzapur and Sonbhadra. In the first, several landless families belonging to coal tribes render bonded labor services. In the second, the landless and totally illiterate semi-tribal members borrow money from the Rajput or Brahmin money lenders and pledge their service until the loan is paid off. The problem of rural indebtedness and debt bondage is closely linked to the problem of immoral trafficking of women in the area. Poor families of dry and drought-prone Palamau and Gadwa district of Bihar migrate to adjoining Badoy, Varanasi and Mirzapur district to work in carpet weaving industry. Children of 6 to 14 years of age accompany the parent and work with them in the same occupation, often in bonded conditions. In Tamil Nadu, bonded labor has been identified in 10 out of 29 districts. The majority of bonded laborers belonging to the community of SC and ST communities. They are known by different names such as Izwas, Charumas, Polias, Panias and Holigas. The system has the following characteristics: that is a written agreement, the debtor receiving less than minimum wages, the debtor having the obligation to work for the master and no freedom to work for others even at higher wages. The government of Arunachal Pradesh has acknowledged the existence of 3,542 bonded laborers who are working under slave-like conditions, but has regretted its inability to attain their immediate release. This Salang system is deeply rooted in the customary practices of this tribal society. In Maharashtra, the practice of the landlord advancing loans to tribesmen for marriage and binding the tribal couple to serve him for life is widely prevalent in the Thane district. Under yet another system known as Pali mode, the tribesmen take loans from the landlord before the onset of the monsoon with the understanding that this would be immediately paid after the harvest. Now, we will discuss the causes of bonded labor. India has been under the British rule. Indians have been the slaves of the British. Therefore, the trait of bonded labor in India is not something new in the country. There are many cultural reasons for the prevalence of child labor in India. An expectation that children would contribute to the socio-economic survival of the family and community, land scarcity and adequate enforcement of labor laws are contributing factor to this problem. In urban areas, due to the migration of families to overpopulated cities, the degeneration of such families due to alcoholism and unemployment often result in a production of children living on the street, becoming bonded laborers and entering into prostitution. In understanding the causes of forced labor in post-colonial agriculture in India, it may be functional to recognize the extent to which this occur out of customary or habitual relationships or were born out of forms of debt bondage which materialized during the colonial period, strengthened by marks of tradition or otherwise have their beginning in the requirements of the capitalist agriculture. Many of the rural sector industries that have a high frequency of bonded labor are located in secluded areas where intermediaries control the employment structure. The possessors of these industries are either part of or have strong connections with the rural power structure. Moreover, these industries are technically in a backward state and are labor intensive. Lack of technological modernization is both a cause and an effect of the low cost labor process that dominate these industries, and this have a major factor to encourage bonded labor. Other major causes of bonded labor are: first one, discrimination on the basis of caste and status; second, vast poverty and inequality; third, limited employment and opportunity; fourth, caste based discrimination; fifth, inefficient system of education; sixth, exploitation; seventh, exploitative sharecropping system; and cultural and religious beliefs. Now, we will discuss the bonded labor in different sectors. The bonded labor take place in different sectors and they have been classified as follows. The first one, the bonded labor system or the bonded labor in agriculture. In the agriculture sector, bonded labor is drawn basically from low caste. They belong to the scheduled caste communities and have no independence to choose their own employment, right of movement, freedom to work elsewhere for minimum wage, and they have to work long hours. In the agriculture sector, bonded labor is mainly in the form of cattle shed cleaners. In the agriculture work, even children are employed. There are male farm servants who provide labor in the home and farm of the employer till their debt is cleared. This bondage is a new phenomena arising from the economic vulnerability of households in drought-prone and ecologically fragile regions. Second, the bonded labor system among the tribals. The scheduled tribes belonging to different regions such as Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Southern Uttar Pradesh, Uttaranchal, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan and Gujarat, who have suffered a gradual erosion of accessibility to traditional livelihood system, have long gone been issued to exploitative debt relations leading to loss of land and bondage to non-tribal. The tribal who have lost most of their land to non-tribal had no other option but to take loans from landlords. In exchange, they or their children were required to work for the landlords for little food or minor prerequisites. Their low wages were adjusted against the loan that they had taken. Now, we will talk about women bonded labor. There are also some indications that women may be increasingly affected by bonded labor in agriculture. It is found that male agricultural laborers were the main beneficiaries of policies encouraging the encroachment of government wasteland, subsidies on credit, productive assets and food, as well as non-agricultural employment generation. Employers thus had less control over the consumption and residence of male workers, enabling men to escape from traditional bonded labor relations. Men had also delegated debt repayment to women both directly and also indirectly by shifting more of the responsibility for family provisioning onto the women. As a consequence, women felt compelled to take up agriculture work at whatever wages and condition it was offered. Women had also been forced to take tied loans to pay men's debts, men absconded, and to satisfy employers' expectations of loyalty in order to have access to consumption credit in the future. It was argued furthermore that this practice involved their working on employers' or creditors' farm at significantly lower tied wages, as well as performing unpaid tasks throughout the season. In India, bonded labor is still widespread and not very many measures have been implemented in order to eradicate the problem of bonded labor. Bonded labor has led to immense loss of freedom for the workers. Children who are engaged in bonded labor are entitled to work under intolerable conditions and their childhood becomes miserable. Labor market segmentation, social discrimination, lack of land, lack of financial services, substantial economic vulnerability, among other social issues, requires long-term development measures and effective poverty alleviation strategies.